AI was supposed to make developers unnecessary, and for a while, that prediction looked believable because the demos showed AI writing code, fixing bugs, and building simple apps in seconds. But those demos mostly showed the easiest part of software development, producing code when the goal is already clear. The harder part is figuring out what should be built, why it's breaking, what trade-offs matter, and how to make decisions when the requirements are messy, incomplete, or constantly changing. So in this video, I'll break down why AI will replace developers sounded so convincing, where that argument started to fall apart, and what most people still misunderstand about what developers actually do. I think the mistake was actually pretty simple. People assumed software development was mostly about writing code. And from the outside, I get why that seems true. Code is the part you can see, it's the part you can screenshot, it's the part AI demos are built around. You type a prompt, AI spits out a feature, and suddenly it looks like the whole job is basically done. But real development doesn't live in the demo, it lives in all the stuff around it. The visible part of the job is the code. The real job is everything around it. Figuring out what's actually being asked for, catching what wasn't said, making trade-offs, working inside a system that already exists, dealing with deadlines, making sure the next person can actually maintain it, coordinating with product, design, QA, the business. That's the part people kept skipping over. And honestly, that's where the prediction started breaking. Because AI is impressive when the task is clear. Build this page, write this function, refactor this block, generate this endpoint. That's where it looks amazing. But the moment the work gets messy, the gap starts to show. And real development gets messy very fast. Think about how a feature actually gets built. Someone says they need something new. Sounds simple. Then the questions start piling up. What exactly should it do? Who's it for? What breaks if we add it this way? What about mobile? Edge cases, permissions, billing. That weird thing an important client asked for 3 months ago that nobody documented? That's real development. None of that shows up in the demo. That's why I think one of the biggest things people missed is this: writing code is often not the bottleneck. A lot of the time, the bottleneck is clarity, or coordination, or bad requirements, or competing priorities, or trying to make the new thing fit into the old thing without breaking everything. That's where the job gets hard. Not when you're typing, when you're deciding. The hardest part of the job is almost never, can someone write the code? It's, did we actually understand the problem? Are we solving the right thing? Is this the right trade-off? How does this break what already exists? Who owns it when something goes wrong later? That's not a coding problem. That's a judgment call. And I want to stop here for a second, because this isn't just theoretical. I was talking to a developer not too long ago. Been in the field for years. Good at his job. The kind of guy who actually understands the systems he works in, not just the code he writes. And he was shaken. Not because he'd lost his job, but because of what he kept seeing online. The demos, the headlines. The AI replaced a team of 10 developers posts that blow up every other week. He said something that stuck with me. He said, "I don't even know what my job is supposed to be anymore." And I think a lot of people in tech are sitting with that same feeling right now. Even the good ones. Maybe especially the good ones, because they're paying close enough attention to actually feel the ground shifting. But here's what I told him. The stuff that's making you nervous, the code generation, the autocomplete, the build me an app prompts, that's the visible part of your job. And yeah, AI is getting really good at that part. But that was never really the hard part. The hard part is everything you do before the code and after the code. The judgment calls, the messy conversations, the moment where you push back on a bad idea because you've seen how it plays out, the ownership you take when something breaks at 2 a.m. and someone has to figure it out. AI doesn't do that. You do. And the more AI handles the obvious stuff, the more that part of your job, the part that's always been hardest to see, becomes the most valuable thing in the room. And that ownership piece matters more than people realize. Companies aren't just paying for output, they're paying for the person who is responsible for what happens after the code ships. That's still a human job, and AI doesn't change that. Now, I'm not saying nothing changed. A lot changed and will continue changing over the next months and years. The workflow shifts. Some tasks get faster, some lower-level work gets squeezed out. But developers are done is too simple. The job is moving upward, less value in producing code, more value in understanding what should be built, why it should be built, and what happens after it ships. The gap widens between people who know how to work with AI and people who don't. And I think this explains why the prediction felt so convincing in the first place. Because coding looks highly automatable from the outside. It's on a computer. It's structured. It has rules. It produces visible output. So of course, people thought developers would be first. But what they underestimated was how much of development is really about dealing with human mess. And human mess is hard to automate. People change their minds. Teams disagree. Requirements are incomplete. Priorities shift. Deadlines move. And someone still has to make the call. AI got really good at the visible part. The invisible part is still huge. That's what kept developers in the picture. So yeah, AI was supposed to replace developers. What it actually exposed is how much of this job was never really about code. It's about making sense of messy problems, making good calls when the answer isn't obvious, and being responsible for what happens after the code leaves your screen. That's why the prediction fell apart, but because the job turned out to be a lot bigger than the part everyone was watching. But I'd love to know what you think. Do you think AI is still on track to replace a lot of developers? Or do you think this whole conversation missed what the job actually is? Let me know in the comments. Share this video with someone you think should watch it. Subscribe so we can continue making videos like this. See you in the next one.